Hi, I'm going to talk to you today about my interviews that I did with my three adolescents. I interviewed three, two girls and a boy. First girl, Krista, is 12 and going into 8th grade. Second girl, Leah, is 13 going into ninth grade. And David is 13 going into ninth grade. And all three of them were referred to me by my local library since I didn't have access to the students that I work with at school over the summer. And what really surprised me is all their answers, really. I think the answers would have been quite different if I had had access to the students that I work with. All three of these kids read abundantly and widely. They try new things. And Krista said she's a good reader because she literally reads every second she can. She hasn't found a book she can't read, and that reading has become a hobby for her. And Leah, which I thought was interesting, says that she likes to challenge herself and look into books that aren't really the most popular. And I find that interesting because I know that myself as an adolescent, I kind of got into like one genre and kind of or one author, kind of stuck with that. Once you find something that you like, it's like you usually tend to stay with that. But I thought that was great that that she looks into books that aren't necessarily the most popular, but that she thinks she might like, or that her mother thinks that she might like. All three of them have an abundance of books at their homes. Krista said she had over 100, Leah 50 or more, David over 100, and that the number of books in their homes was even over that, over 120, over 200, over 600. And that they've all read, Krista said she reads about 12 books a month. Leah said she probably reads 25 a year, and David reads about 50 in a year. So that's really exciting to hear that there are, teenagers with encouragement will read abundantly. All three of these kids said that they were encouraged either by their parents or in school, and that the thing that they remember about good reading experiences is being read to either as a child by their parents or by their teacher, going to sit on the rug in the back of the room and being read to. They really liked that. Another thing that kind of surprised me is when I asked them who's a better reader, boys or girls. All three of the kids said that it didn't matter. They didn't really have a preconceived notion of that boys are better readers or girls are better readers. And so I thought that was really cool that none of them really had that, like, a preconceived idea. All three of them read every day, and at least for 30 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on the book. If they get hooked, they just kind of keep reading, and especially in the summer when they have the time to do that. All three thought that if they needed to be, what did you need to do to be a good reader is to be interested and to read a lot, be interested in what you're choosing, and be able to comprehend what you're reading. They did have different answers about whether they like to have their teacher read to them in school. Krista thought that it was a great way to relax in school. Leah thought it depended on what was being read and how good of a reader the teacher was. If the teacher, for her, if the teacher stopped too much to explain what's going on in the book, she lost interest. She said she does realize that some kids in the class need that explanation, but it bores her because she doesn't need that added explanation. She would rather the teacher just keep going rather than stop and elaborate too much on certain points in the book. And David said that he doesn't like to be read to in the class because he can read much faster himself and doesn't like to just sit there and listen to the teacher read. They aren't necessarily crazy about the books that are read to them or that the school chooses for them. They're like, yeah, they're okay. But that when they have to read a book for school, they can get distracted because they'd rather be reading what they choose rather than what they're told to read. All of them read the books first before they watch a movie. And they're not huge movie watchers. They read more than they watch movies, about one a week. And a lot of times they do choose movies that are books. Except for David, he likes action movies. So the girls like to watch movies that are based on books. And also like Disney and DreamWorks, that kind of stuff. They read more novels than anything. Comic books, some, but graphic novels and fan fiction. Leah said she even will read fan fiction of some of the novels. Newspapers, sometimes, nah, no, yes. Magazines, a little bit, skim, they skim those kinds of things. And they all reread books, which is, I found very interesting because I don't ever reread books. It's like I visit a book and then I've experienced it and then I don't really reread it. And I thought it was interesting. Krista said she feels like a book is a different world. And just because you finished the book, why should you have to leave that world? You can revisit. She said she's read the Earth Girl, she's reread the Earth Girl series, the Five Kingdoms series, and the Selection series. And Leah said sometimes she'll just pick up a book and reread her favorite parts of a book. She won't necessarily reread the whole thing. And David says sometimes he'll reread just to get a better understanding of the book or a different perspective on the book. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought what they said was interesting in that, with what's assigned to school, that they're not so much interested. I re-looked at the Remix journal article that we read, and on page 11 it says, we feel a sense of urgency to promote this instructional information because of the large number of adolescents who are alienated by school practices and goals that they feel are outdated and unrelated to their lives. So that kind of speaks to what we've learned in this course, is that not to be afraid to go ahead and choose other titles that won't bore the kids and that will get them, even these kids who are really good readers, for them to say that they're bored with it kind of speaks to what we're choosing to read with our students. And also, as far as for struggling readers, I didn't interview any struggling readers, but it says for many of these, on page 12 of the Remix, says for many of these struggling students, too, a big part of the problem is that they're uninterested in what they're being assigned to read in school because they feel it does not connect to how they are making meaning in their outside of school literacy world. And that's by Alverman and Heron on page 12 in the Remix article that we were assigned. And so I think that we have these 3 students who are willing to try different genres with encouragement, and that we as educators need to read widely in order to encourage reading so that we can promote a different set of things, such as, using graphic novels and things that will help our students. to become readers. Bean, on page 16 in our textbook by Butcher and Hinton, argues that teachers who wish to help students become lifelong readers must teach interesting and relevant literature. And I think that if we model enthusiasm and do things like book talks and book trailers and the story compressions that we did, that's a way that we can really, teach students to connect to what we're reading. Page 58 of our textbook says, by modeling enthusiasm and appreciation of literature, you can be a powerful role model for students. So if maybe doing different things too, if you're going to have read alouds in class, maybe have some of your better readers read to the kids. And we as teachers need to really take the time to read widely so that we can encourage reading. I think that these 3 students that I interviewed were probably atypical, but that it was very interesting to see how, that even though they read a lot and like different genres, that they were still a little bit discouraged by what they're being told to read in school. So I think that really just speaks to exactly what we've been learning, that we need to incorporate adolescent literature, and we need to find ways to connect adolescent literature to what we want to read in the classroom as far as our curriculum goes, and maybe interview the kids, have them fill this out, find out what their reading habits are, what they like, what they don't like. Like, I never would have thought to bring graphic novels in to the classroom, but after reading the 2 that I read this past week, they're high level, they're high school level material, and can really benefit struggling readers as far as having the pictures and all that. So I think, just being open to incorporating different types of literature into your classroom is really important. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I learned from this is that even our best readers are looking for that. Okay, thank you.